Welcome back. It's time for another edition of Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also heard to our folks there in Las Vegas on 98.5 The Bet and KDON 101.5 FM. So a hearty hello to our radio audience. It is Scott Branson with Mo Moten. We are here to talk about Raiders football. We're here to talk about the soap opera that is Raiders football. It's kind of seemingly been that way for 27 years, but we're going to get into that here as we forge ahead with the show. Do us a favor, though. If you don't already subscribe to the show, if you're listening to us on radio this once a week that we're on the radio, great, thank you. But we also have the podcast throughout the week as well, including post-game show and everything. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your audio. Do us a favor, rate and review as well. If you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you may be watching us, please subscribe there. Hit that notifications bell, especially on YouTube, and also give us a thumbs up if you would. We would appreciate that very much. Again, Scott Branson, Mo Moten. Mo's the senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report, covering the entire league. He also is a Raiders columnist at sportsnot.com, and you can also catch him on, it's Monday, Wednesdays, right? On TNT Sports on True TV. Monday, Wednesdays. Monday, Thursday. Thank you. See, that's why I have Mo's here. He keeps me in line. Monday, Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, right, Mo?
Yes.
6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. So make sure you watch Mo. Show those ratings go way up when Mo's on, so that they have to like give him even more favored status, right? Because he is so good at what he does. But anyway, you do that. Also follow him on x.com at Mo Moten, MOEMOTON. I am at LV Gully, the show. SNB today. So if you want to talk Raiders, we're there for you. All right, Mo. Davante Adams, the drama continues to forge on and boil over, if you will. We're going to get into some of the particulars here. Really interesting too. Some thoughts, and we're going to hear from Antonio Pierce from the press conference on Wednesday, as well as another clip I'm going to play for everybody out there. But Mo, we talked about Davante Adams. I go back and I checked our shows going back to even once Derek Carr was let go and that situation changed. A lot of people were like, oh, well, he's going to demand a trade. He did not do that back then. He said, no, I want to be a Raider, and so I want to see what the plan is. The plan was Jimmy Garoppolo under under Josh McDaniels, and that was a bummer. And so not happy there. He was not happy there. Neither were Raider fans, and we saw what happened. He gets fired, and Antonio Pierce takes over. Davante Adams was one of the people who advocated publicly for Davante Adams, and on numerous times in numerous interviews talked about how happy he was that Antonio Pierce got the job. But again, the Raiders don't really address their quarterback situation. They go to Aiden O'Connell last year. It seemed Adams was okay with that, a young quarterback. They bring in Gardner Minshew this year. They were not able to get a quarterback in the draft and maybe build from the ground up with a young guy. And so Davante Adams, in the time he's been with the Raiders, our good friend Q Myers over at Raider Nation Radio brought it up on an ESPN interview he did on Wednesday, where he said, he's had 6 quarterbacks, Davante Adams. 6 quarterbacks after being in Green Bay with 1 the entire time. The stability, we heard this from Josh Jacobs when he left too, stability, lack thereof. And so Davante Adams comes to this point, hurts his hamstring, which we now know from numerous reports that it is really a hamstring injury. We wondered if it was just kind of like I'm holding in type of thing after last week. But indeed, he does have an injury that he's nursing. But either way you look at this, Mo, this is both, I think, an embarrassment and an indication of where the Raider organization has been and where it is right now. And that is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of drama. We've seen already 2 things this year. This is the second thing after, of course, Antonio Pierce called out his players after the loss to Carolina at home in the home opener. And so you look at all of this, Mo, and I want to go back and I want to give you some time here to kind of frame this, because there's a couple things at play here. And so I want to address them separately because people conflate them. Talking to people online, well, this has been brewing. It didn't just happen, because I actually posted on Tuesday that I can't believe that this liking of an Instagram post created this. And what I meant was it created the story that day. It's what brought it to the surface, or broke the camel's back, if you will, the straw is. And so that piece of it is there, but it's been going on, and it's not surprising in some ways, is it?
It's not surprising. I remember this conversation dates back to last year.
Mm-hmm.
I remember after Derek Carr was benched, sent away, um, Davante Adams was asked directly, now that Derek Carr's out of the picture, are you still committed to the team? Davante Adams outwardly said, yes, he's committed to being a Raider. And I believe him in that case. So remember, that was at the end of the 2022 season.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go into 2023, as you mentioned. The Raiders bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. If you watch the Receiver Netflix series, you know that Davante Adams wasn't happy with Jimmy Garoppolo. If you read Vic Tafer's latest piece on the Davante Adams saga, you will know he wrote that Davante Adams signed off on that, but it rubs some players the wrong way. So now you have a situation where Davante Adams doesn't like the quarterback situation. He wanted to change. They go to Aiden O'Connell. They win some games. They save Adam Pierce. They save Antonio Pierce's job, basically, or get him to get the full-time job. Then you go to 2024, right? And I reposted this on Twitter. Davante Adams called all of the Deshaun Jackson rumors BS. And maybe they were BS at the time. But I'm starting to think that maybe there were some rumblings that he just wasn't letting out to the public because Vic Tate from the Athletic wrote that there was a lingering tension between Adams and the organization / Antonio Pierce going back to training camp. When I mentioned the Receiver Netflix series,
Mm-hmm.
again, players start to feel, or people in the building felt like, and this is according to Vic Tafer, that Adams was putting himself above the team. That it was me instead of we. And he was putting himself above everyone else and he was above reproach. So I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that something happened between early September before the season started and the meeting that happened to tip Davante Adams over to say, get me out of here. Because there's no way you go from standing in front of cameras, looking straight into the camera and saying, it's all BS, don't believe the rumors. And his agent also came out and said, don't believe the rumors, to now a month later saying, well, I'm really not in control of anything. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to do my workout. This is what he said on the Cam show. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't even look K in the eyes when he was talking about his future with the team. So he already knew, because we know Ian Rappaport said that he went to the team on Monday and said that he prefers to play elsewhere. So by the time he got on the Cam show, he already knew what was going on. But Scott, really quick, this doesn't just come up in a day. And I know what you meant by your post, that Antonio Pierce liking that post from Michael Fabiano of Sports Illustrated kind of set everything over. To me, that's where Antonio Pierce has to be better than that as a head coach. You're a head coach. You shouldn't be liking anything on Instagram about player relations and trades. Coaches don't even get up on the podium and talk about trades, and they know they're not going to talk about it, let alone be on social media. That's where I think Antonio Pierce showed his, I don't want to say inexperience, but just a bit of just a nonchalantness that you can't have from a head coach. Now with as far as Davante Adams is concerned, he clearly changed his mind. He
Mm-hmm.
was all in at one point. He's not all in now. So I can't blame Tom Telesco for it, because if your star player comes to you and says, hey, I'm all in as long as you'll have me, and you take his word for it, like, okay, I take your word for it. We're all in. And then he changes his mind. Tom Telesco can't do anything about that. So I'm just saying this is a lot of his on Davante Adams.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different issues to talk about there, and I think that one of the issues is people want to put blame on someone, right?
Yeah.
And in a case like this, I think there's a conglomeration of things that happen, and you just did a great job of running through some of them, going back to the departure of Derek Carr and what Davante Adams, that relationship, and how he was very instrumental in getting Davante Adams to want to come to Las Vegas and become a Raider. So you get that, but you're right. The clip you shared on Wednesday, where Davante Adams on the 4th of September, okay, so less than a month technically, where he's saying about the comments, is saying, I never told anybody that. I'm happy here. There's no problem, blah, blah, blah. So like, yeah, things can change in 30 days. I'm not saying they can't, but every time that he's spoken, he has said this same thing over and over again. We know he gave a speech to the team before the game, even though he didn't play because of injury. And so that in itself is odd to me. So, what happened in between, or what's been brewing since training camp? Vic Tafer's piece where he mentioned the training camp thing, I'm like, wow, that's interesting, right? Because again, Davante Adams was very, very supportive of Antonio Pierce becoming the head coach permanently. He was also very prominently figured in getting Luke Getsy to Las Vegas, right? That's also part of the equation here. So some fans, I think, are overreacting, with all due respect. That's just my opinion, when they blame Davante Adams being a diva and blah, blah, blah. And some of that might be true. But also, they're blaming the coaching side, and it's like, look, he got the coaches he wanted, and then he's not happy. What's going on? Da da da. You know, there's a lot of things at play there, and we won't know the full truth until somebody decides to, if they ever do, share the full truth. But where we're at with this is interesting, and I think some of the issues you talked about, and I want to start with Antonio Pierce, because this is the second time in 3 weeks that there's been unnecessary drama, I guess. I get unnecessary, maybe that's the wrong word, but there's been drama, right? So, well, the calling out his players, I've seen some people say, well, I love that he called out the players. Yes, you call out players, but you don't necessarily do it publicly. You and I have talked about that a million times on this show. Coach speak at press conference. You say it in a way where the people who know understand it, but you don't necessarily say it verbatim to the media in the world, because that's kind of showing somebody up. So he apologized for that. Got to give him credit. I think that's what a grown adult and a man does. Like, hey, I made a mistake, and he owned up to it. Okay, great. So then this happens. So then you have to start to think, what's going on here? Now, the press conference on Wednesday, of course, the first question was from Vinny, and he asks, Antonio Pierce doesn't answer. And then Tashawn Reed, and this is a video from News 8 in Las Vegas. This is from the press conference. This is Antonio Pierce talking, or being asked by Tashawn Reed of The Athletic about this.
He's rehabbing, and the rest of us are focused on Denver.
Is he here in the building today? Or?
He's supposed to be rehabbing.
So yesterday, Davante went on the Davante Adams show and discussed, there was a social media post earlier this week. Is that something that was accidental on your part in terms of liking the post? Or?
Yeah, I'm just focused on Denver.
Communicated with Davante, and where was the relationship with you? And
me and Davante talk often.
Have you talked to him since all of this?
I believe that between me and Davante.
There you go. I think that speaks volumes, right? So he did not answer the question on if it was an accident that he liked this post. To me, which is basically, yeah. I mean, I would have preferred that he just said, yeah, I did, but I'm not talking about it anymore. We're moving past it. Okay, fine, whatever. But he did. That was an answer in itself. And then, of course, Vinny followed up with, where's your relationship with him? He said, we talk often, which, again, is you have to read into that what you may, but clearly not a good situation, not a healthy situation for either side, the organization or the player, clearly. And, I look at this and I go back to, we have said, and we've given grace, Mo, that we knew Antonio Pierce would make mistakes, especially on the field coaching. Like, who wouldn't? If it's your first time, I don't care how much you know about football, when you're in charge of it all permanently and it's all on you, it's hard. And so I don't fault him for some of those mistakes. We've seen them, and no big deal. You get past them. But this off the field stuff and the liking of a post, I know it seems so ridiculous, right? But that's the world we live in. And as a head coach, you are held above. You are one of 32 people on the entire planet who coach a professional football team in the NFL. Okay. So you're held to a different standard. You're not a player anymore. You're not some assistant. You're not the equipment guy. You are the head coach, and you are the face of the organization. And for those of you who don't have problems with that, I don't understand you, because there's professionalism involved here. It's football. Yes, it's a game. I get it. But Mo, that to me is what struck me is, and I'm not going to hang the guy over this for weeks and weeks and weeks, but clearly just another misstep off the field that makes the organization look bad, and also I think puts more doubt in people's mind about Antonio Pierce's ability to run the team. Maybe not necessarily coach X's and O's here and there, but definitely to handle the role and what it entails.
So Antonio Pierce has made mistakes, and he's apologized for some of those mistakes. And that's fine. That's showing accountability.
Absolutely. This
is the one instance where I'm on the other side and I'm saying, I don't see the accountability there. Because if he didn't like the post by accident, right, and it was on purpose, then just own it and say, yeah, that was me. I did that. But I'm not. Next question. I'm not gonna talk about it.
Right.
If he didn't do it, he would just say, hey, it was an accident. I scrolling through social media, accidentally like the post, move on, right? Fine. But
Right.
another answer is just kind of like, well, I did this, but I'm not gonna take accountability for it. And I'm just looking at that like, okay, I know what people are just saying it's just an Instagram post, but when you don't answer questions at these media pressers, and I know a lot of fans say he doesn't owe any answers to them, and okay, fine. But when you don't answer these questions, then people are going to have their speculation. People are going to have their opinions on it. So you can either answer the question truthfully and move on from it so that the speculation goes away, or you don't answer the question as Antonio Pierce didn't, and then people are going to continue to speculate and it becomes a story. Jacoby Myers came out on Wednesday. He said, it's a distraction. It is what it is. He called it a distraction. I'm not saying it's a distraction. Jacoby Myers, who's on the football team, said it is a distraction, but we have to move forward and just play football. So his players, or at least one of them, has already acknowledged that this is a distraction, what's going on. So what I'm saying is, as a head coach, part of your job is not only coaching a football team on the field, the X's and O's, timeouts, when to go for, all that other stuff having to do with football. You also have to put out fires before they start, before they spread. Problem solving. Excuse me, Scott. Problem solving is a big part of being a CEO and a leader of a company or a face of an organization. And Antonio Pierce did do a good job of problem solving in that situation.
No, and to me, this is what, and I know I'm not comparing the two people because I think they're very different men, but this is what happened with Josh McDaniels, right? It sowed the way he handled people is how things deteriorated. Forget his lack of coaching ability and inability to kind of get the most out of his talent and make wrong decisions like the Garoppolo decision. But when you look at this, this is a situation where it's the same kind of thing. You are sowing seeds of discord within your own organization because of the way you're handling things. Now, remember, I heard a lot about, well, yes, he's inexperienced, but he's got Marvin Lewis there. He's got Tom Coughlin. I don't know what those guys have told him and if Pierce is just not listening to them, because I've never seen those guys do that publicly. I've seen the speeches and all that in the locker room, which is all private. We talked about that in the last show. But this in itself, to me, is just not professional. And you can't have a head coach doing it. And like you said, people told me a lot because I was making comments publicly and people were like, he doesn't care what you think or the media think. Okay, fine. But as you said, Mo, so eloquently, which is, okay, then people will just speculate. And people are like, this is not a story. You just want a headline. No, he made the headline. Davante Adams made the headline. No one made that headline. By liking a post, he created a firestorm. He just did. This might have been all going on behind the scenes, and we would have never known about it until we found out that Davante Adams was traded. I mean, that could have worked out that way. It didn't, though, because of his actions. I want to play you this clip, too. Not a big fan of Nick Wright over on ESPN on First Things First, but I'm going to play this because I think this accurately captures, and I think this is where a lot of people, including some people that I reached out to who work in the league, work in the media, and they sort of had the same reaction. So here's Nick Wright.
To how ridiculous some things in our day-to-day life and culture have gotten. But the head coach of an NFL team being the final straw that breaks the camel's back on arguably your best player, certainly your best player on offense, requesting a trade, being the fact that he was scrolling Instagram, evidently, and liked a tweet about you playing your last snap, it's the type of sentence that if you read 10 years ago, you'd say, well, that's cartoonish and dumb and doesn't make sense. And I don't think it's a good look for Antonio Pierce at all. I was talking to you before the show. I think it's ridiculous, the thing Belichick used to do, which is like, I don't have an Insta Space or a My Book, like pretending you don't know what these social media companies are. Like, I'm so locked in to studying the 48 Rams playbook. Like, that I think is nonsense.
I mean, he wasn't great on computers.
Okay, that's great. But I also think that doing what, like, the way petty high schoolers let someone know they want to break up with them to your star receiver is not the way a head coach should act. And I think that the Raiders have made cascadingly ridiculous decisions post the Davante Adams trade. They traded for Davante Adams. They gave up the 22nd and 53rd pick to get him because they thought they were close. After a year of it, they traded away the guy the guy who he came there to want to play with because they had a plan, but the plan was Jimmy Garoppolo, who they soured on within a year without really having a plan. They then fire the coach and hire the interim, and now they're going to trade Davante, I would imagine, for cents on the dollar because I don't think you're at the peak of your trade value when you're dealing with a lingering soft tissue injury. So I just think it's a disaster class by the Raiders, and somebody's going to get a really good receiver.
Well, there you go. And Mo, I thought he captured that really well because, again, it was two separate issues we're dealing with here. We're talking about what Pierce did with the post, and then we're talking about the Raiders and how they've handled Davante Adams through the series of changes and all of these things that have happened inside the organization. And so that's how we have to look at this issue. I think you have to look at the things separately, even though they came together in this instance. This is very bad for the organization overall. And two, it's bad for Antonio Pierce.
So we talked about Davante Adams changing his mind, right? So that's on him. No one can control how he feels. So he changed his mind within a month, publicly at least. While privately, I think he may have had it in the back of his mind that he was planning his way out anyway. But that's on Davante. We talked about Antonio Pierce liking the Instagram post, which just comes off as juvenile. Now we get to the organizational issue, and Nick Wright pointed it out very well. So you get a star wide receiver in Davante Adams, in his prime, pretty much at his prime. He was still 29 when they acquired him. And you pair him with a quarterback he wants to play with, and then you jettison that quarterback who's a starter, and you don't get anything for him. So now you got the star receiver and no quarterback plan. And when you do get a quarterback plan, what happens? He comes in and he has an injury. Remember the press conference that Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to have and they got pushed back, Scott?
Yeah,
and
because of the failed physical.
Yeah, because of the physical. Oh, no big deal. Nothing to see here. I remember hearing nothing to see with Jimmy Garoppolo. Everything's going to be fine. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. Now they redid his contract, added an addendum to it just in case to protect themselves. Fine. He winds up playing, but then doesn't finish the season. So now you got rid of the quarterback that Davante came to play with. And then your plan B at quarterback doesn't work out. You bench him for a rookie fourth rounder. Aiden O'Connell did the best that he could, but let's be honest about Aiden O'Connell's ceiling. It's very limited. Then the following year, this year, you bring in another bridge gap quarterback in Gardner Minshew. And oh, by the way, when Davante Adams was playing, in 2 of the 3 games he played in, didn't get a ton of targets.
Nope.
So to me, you could talk about Davante Adams and Antonio Pierce and what they've done on the back end of this. But this all started back in 2022 when the Raiders didn't really have a plan after Derek Carr. So you're wasting Davante Adams' years, his good years, with these backup / low-end starter quarterbacks. And you have this star receiver who's, by the way, not in his early 20s. He's in his late 20s going into his 30s. When you acquire a player like that, Scott, you have to play to win now. And if your win now plan isn't solid, you're just wasting quality years for Davante Adams. And that's why a lot of our callers into the show have always said, I think they should just trade Davante Adams because the timeline of the Raiders and Davante Adams' timeline just don't match up.
They don't
match up.
And this is where the organizational failure, because Dave Ziegler comes in and that plan is brutal because we all know what happened with Garoppolo. That was their plan, which was piss poor. So then at that point, you bring on Antonio Pierce and you hire Tom Telesco. Now, why Tom Telesco didn't try to move him, we heard reports earlier in the week. Now it all kind of fits together because I'm sure the agent was floating stuff out there, was that they got calls. I mean, Schefter was saying they got calls in the offseason about Davante Adams, and they said they wouldn't even take him, right? You mentioned this on the last show. Wouldn't even take him. So you're going to tell me that the organization thought with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell and where this team is that they were going to go to the Super Bowl and that they needed him? Now, again, he's a great player. They don't target him. They can't get the ball down the field. They've had problems with offense all year. So they are to blame for that piece of it. There's no question. I'm not blaming Antonio Pierce for that because he didn't make those decisions, okay? At the same time, I think that you look at where Davante Adams is, I don't blame him. I would have asked for a trade long ago. I really would have, right? Some people said, he'll do it after Derek Carr. I didn't think he would there because he said he wanted to see what they were going to do. Remember, he speaks. Davante Adams is very measured. When he speaks, he doesn't just pop off. He speaks, and he sometimes does read between the lines. He's a smart dude. And I think we saw back then when Carr was gone, he was kind of like, well, let me see. I want to know what their plan is and blah, blah, blah. So they gave him the plan, and the plan blew up. And so that's on the Raiders. Okay. And a lot of people are, Davante Adams quit on his team. No, I don't think so at all. Look, if you're unhappy in a situation and they've not done anything they've said they're going to do, why would you want to stay?
There are multiple fronts to this. You can look at it this way. This is the way I look at it. In certain aspects, the organization failed Davante Adams. I talked about the poor quarterback plan that the Raiders had after Derek Carr, post Derek Carr. But also, you have to look at it from a perspective that, okay, Davante Adams made a choice.
Yes, he did.
Now he said he was committed, and this is just me personally. I wouldn't come out publicly and say, hey, I'm all in, especially if and of course my phone is blowing up because somebody is angry about my comments about Davante Adams. But
yes, right.
I wouldn't stand in front of the podium and say I'm all in if I know in the back of my head I'm not all in. And that's where the hang up comes in for me with Davante Adams. At what point, and we'll, like you said, unless Davante Adams comes out and says something, we'll never really know when he decided, like, look, I don't fit in here. But you always you kind of put yourself in a box when you say I'm committed to the Raiders and you're kind of strong about it. I remember in April he said if I wanted to be gone, I would be gone already. I remember those comments before the draft.
Yep.
So he had been speaking publicly.
He was in.
He was all in.
Right.
So but this is why, Scott, this is why I don't blame Tom Telesco. And a lot of people say, well, Tom Telesco should have traded him long ago.
He didn't want to be traded.
Right. If Tom Telesco traded Davante Adams before the season, a lot of fans would say, what are you doing? You're trading your best wide receiver before the season. What type of message are you sending to your football team trading your best receiver? So
that's right.
He took Davante Adams' word at face value that he was all in. And the Raiders' message has continuously been, we're trying to compete in 2024. And you don't do that by trading your best wide receiver. So I understand Tom Telesco holding on to him because I'm sure eventually we're going to hear comments from Tom Telesco saying that he was blindsided by all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, when you look at the quarterback plan, you have to know that your star receiver who's in his early 30s isn't going to be happy with a bunch of stopgap guys throwing him the football.
That's right. All right. We're overdue for a break because obviously this is a huge subject. We're going to come back for a pretty short segment too. And then, of course, we got to get to your calls. We got calls as well. So when we come back here on Silver and Black today, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll get to your calls in segment 3. And by the way, we have so many calls that we will be, for our radio audience, we will do what we call our overtime. We'll have more calls in a fourth segment that won't be on the radio, but you can get it on the podcast feed. So don't go anywhere. This is Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. By the way, our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Stick around for a message from them. We're coming right back. Hey, everybody, it is Scott. And Mo and I talk about on the show all the time, and that's putting a little bit of dough on the games, not only the Raider games, but NFL games. We also like to bet some baseball, a little bit of everything. And to do that, we go to our partners at BetUS. If you haven't bet yet with BetUS, you're missing out. Not only do they have a great world-class website to make those bets, mobile app as well, no matter where you're at, even for our fans in Nevada, you can do it there. But the most important thing is they really take good care of you. Talking about customer service, so many times today it's lost on companies, especially in this growing field of online gambling. But if you look at BetUS, not only do they have great payouts, great odds, and pretty much everything you want to bet on, but they take care of you. You can, in fact, get a personal betting analyst to work with, an assistant to work with, your own personal assistant. They will assign you a person that you can reach out to, and they'll help you with it. So that's what we want to do. But I'm up here on the website just to show you how easy it is. And of course, I'm wearing my Padres stuff because the Padres are in the playoffs. But we look at football, and I tell you what, you go through this website, you're able to see every game in the NFL, and this is what we do. On our Thursday shows, you guys hear us do it, but you can get here, you can get the odds. Not only that, but you can also go into the tab here. It says markets, and you can bet everything from the game, the halves to quarters to game props, and be able to really make the Sunday fun. Outside of the Raiders, we know you're ride or die with them, and it's emotional. So I don't necessarily think you should bet on them, but nonetheless, you got to bet on something. You got to have some fun, and at BetUSA to do it. Not only that, the amazing thing about this too is, guess what they do? Guess what? Because Mo and I went to bat for you guys. Yes, we went to bat for you. The BetUS will give you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. That's right, you heard it, 150. So you put $100 down, you're getting $150. And you also can deposit your second or third time $125. 125% bonus is basically what it is. So you put 100, you get 125. That's your next two deposits 2 and 3, up to $2,000 as well. And all you got to do is use our special code here. It is YouTube150. Again, that is YouTube150 to get your 150% sign up bonus. This is an exclusive offer here on Silver and Black today from our boys, our girls over at BetUS, where the game begins. And again, they will take care of you. They take care of us. You know, we don't just do ads and have partners on the show to do it. We do it with only people that we believe in, that we would use. I'm not going to ever try to turn you on to a product I wouldn't use, and BetUS does that. But go do it. Check it out. You can bet anything you want, from basketball, football, ice hockey, even politics. Look at this. I know we're talking about football, but if I want to bet on the U.S. politics, I go here and check this out. I think I can bet. Look, I can bet on the presidential election right there. The updated odds: Kamala Harris at -120, Donald Trump at -10. They don't have a point spread. Get it? But anyway, you could bet on politics. I know that's a dicey situation to talk about, but all these type things, great parlays, you name it. Again, got to remind you, using this special code from us here at Silver and Black today, from our friends at BetUS, YouTube 150, 150% sign up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000, and 125 on the next two deposits up to $2,000 as well. Again, YouTube 150 from BetUS, the official sportsbook of Silver and Black today. Go get them. Welcome back, Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Also heard on 101.5 FM KDON in Las Vegas, as well as 98.5 The Bet HD2 in Las Vegas. So welcome to our radio audience. Scocco Branson, Momo, and we're talking about the Davante Adams, of course, situation as we head into Sunday's game against the Denver Broncos. And Mo, we talked about how there's three different issues. And you closed out the last segment talking about Davante Adams clearly made choices. He said as early as recently, I should say, as September, that no, he's fine. He was all in, no problems, right? And clearly in a month that has changed. So that's on him. We talked about the Raider organization's failures with the plan for a quarterback after Derek Carr, and why trade for a wide receiver of this caliber if you're going to blow things up while trying to say that you're still competing. Okay, that's on the Raiders. That's on the former GM, the current GM to a certain degree, as well as the owner, Mark Davis. Thirdly is the Antonio Pierce thing. And I know, listen, for those of you who think Antonio Pierce can do no wrong, you're not going to like me to say this, but he's got to do better, Mo. Listen, the only way this season could have started more poorly for Antonio Pierce is if he went 0-4. I really believe that. The way things have been handled, he was supposed to provide stability in this organization. Remember when Max Crosby, who was very eloquent, said a lot of great things about Antonio Pierce, saying, man, I've had too much change here. We need this guy. He's been here. We love him. We want him to come in. This is our culture. He's going to establish a culture. Well, I got to say, the culture he's established has not done anything yet. Now, I understand I only see piece of it. Okay. So maybe inside with certain things are going as he said they would. But overall, you cannot have a rockier start. And I would say, if this doesn't stop immediately and things don't change immediately in how he handles this and how he handles these things, again, not all of them are in his control. I understand that. Everyone in their life has things that happen to them that is not within their control, right? You with me? But guess what? You do control how you react to it. And how he's reacted to these two situations early in the season has been ridiculous. And he will not last if this is how he handles things.
You're absolutely right. I'm not calling for Antonio Pierce's job.
No,
but
me either.
If it continue, make it clear for the people listening, because they're gonna say we're trying to get Antonio Pierce fired. We're not calling for Antonio Pierce's job after week 4.
No.
But what we are saying is that the way this is trending, he is not going to last long, because we're talking about things other than football.
Right.
Scott, it's Denver Broncos Raiders rivalry week, and we're talking about Antonio Pierce liking a post on Instagram. We're talking about a Davante Adams trade packages. What happened within the span of a month? We're talking about everything else but football.
Yeah.
And going forward, as I said, Jacoby Myers has already said this is a distraction. The way you get this right, focus back on the football. Get rid of these distractions. Answer the questions if you have to, so that the questions stop coming, because you know people are going to continue to ask what happened.
Yes.
Especially as long as Davante Adams is still technically a Raider on their roster until they trade him, the questions are going to keep on coming. And this is why I say sometimes I understand you don't have to answer everything to the media. The media isn't the almighty. We have to answer all their questions. No. But if you want certain things to go away, sometimes it's just best to address it head on forward. First things first, get it out of the way, and then say, okay, let's get back to football. Right. And in these first 4 weeks, Scott, through September up until early October now, we've talked about wake-up calls, team meetings, guys making business decisions, Davante Adams trade talk. That's been the highlight of the Raiders season. You forget that the Raiders are 2-2 and could be 3-2 this weekend if they beat the Denver Broncos because of all the other stuff that's going on.
Right. And I had somebody say to me today, they said, well, it's because I was critical of Antonio Pierce not addressing the question directly. And like you said, it could have been a very quick answer. And look, it's the last time I'm going to talk about it. Okay, that's your right. You don't have to tell anybody anything. But his point was, well, he doesn't want distractions. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
A distraction. It's all right.
You're kidding me. No, it's only a distraction outside. Oh, no, it's not. When your best player, your best offensive player, and a guy who is so well respected throughout the league, a guy who a lot of teams, if they had the cap space, would kill to have, and this happens, you don't think that's a distraction? Are you kidding me? Stop. I mean, let's be real here, okay? And so yes, so I think you nailed it on the head too, which is like you have to act in a professional manner. And Antonio Pierce now several times, and that there's been warning signs, like you talked about. Well, wake up calls. Well, what? Wait a minute. You guys are all in on this guy. This guy, you wanted to be traded if this guy didn't get the job. Okay. And I'm not saying Max Crosby's in on this because I have no idea, and he's not said anything to that effect. But I'm saying it in general. A lot of the players wanted him, including Josh Jacobs, who's gone. But these guys were ready to crawl over broken glass to get this guy in. And we're talking about wake-up calls. We're talking about business decisions. We're talking about trading the best offensive player you have. So anybody who wants to argue with me that, oh, it's not a big deal, you're ridiculous. And so this is not what you want to focus on as Raider Nation. And much to the chagrin of some of you who just hate anybody who makes videos or content or are in the media, the bad media thing, it wouldn't be a story if things were handled professionally. There's lots of things that happen in locker rooms and behind closed doors, NFL and pro teams, but they don't become public because the people in charge don't make them public. So that's the big difference here. Mo, I know we're in a short segment here because we want to get to the calls, but I want to close out on this before we hear from the callers, which I'm sure are all about this. But when you look at this situation, the way forward, we know what the way forward is for Davante Adams. He's going to get out. He's going to go somewhere else. Okay. For the Raiders, though, and particularly for Antonio Pierce, what's the next step? If you were there and he was listening to you instead of whoever else he's listening to or not listening to, what would you tell him to do from this point forward to get things back on track?
First thing I would do on Friday, step in front of the media and just say, look, I'm going to address this one time. And after that, it's all about football. After I address it today on Friday, no more questions about Davante Adams. We'll handle our business behind closed doors, and our communications with Davante Adams are private. And they should be, because when you're dealing with potentially training a player, you're not going to make that public. But after that press conference, we're talking about our opponents. We're talking about our season. We're talking about certain players and their development, how they're progressing. And that's it. We're getting away from all this social media stuff, the trade talk, the team meeting that happened. We get away from all that. We get him back to football, because the one thing that you don't want, and as I said, I'm going to say this for a third or fourth time, what you don't want are distractions. And Jacoby Myers has already called it that. So now you want to move away from that and focus on football, because football is hard enough. You practice multiple times a week, that you're playing through injuries. You have your own life to deal with. Focus on life and football. Leave all the other stuff behind, right? Then from there, okay, how do we replace Davante Adams' production? Because you don't replace Davante Adams. He's a multi-time All-Pro, right? You're not going to replace Davante Adams with one player. But, okay, how are we going to replace the passing production? Because you beat the Browns by passing for 130 yards. And I see a lot of people say this. Well, we beat the Browns without Davante Adams. We're going to be fine. You beat the Browns, who are 1-3, not a good football team, injury riddled, all that stuff. They have their own issues. You can get by beating the Browns like that. But when you start to play better teams, playoff caliber teams, you're not going to get by throwing for 130 yards. So you have to figure out how you're going to get that production going through the air, because, by the way, the run game has only showed up for 1 week, and that was against the Browns. So unless you think you're running for 150 plus yards every week and playing defense as you did against the Browns, then you probably think we don't need the passing game, but you need the balance. So I said this last show, Scott, they got to get Brock Bowers more involved. Trey Tucker has seen an uptick in his production. Jacoby Myers is going to step up in a bigger role. Maybe you get DJ Turner more involved, Tyreek McAllister more involved. Who knows? If you do trade Davante Adams and you get a wide receiver back, maybe he can help you out as well. But that's down the line. But for now, you look in-house and say, our group has some depth, still deep. We can spread the ball around, kind of like what the Bills are doing. I'm not saying Gardner Minshew becomes Josh Allen by any means. That's not what I'm saying. But the Bills don't have a star receiver. But Josh Allen is still very efficient with the football. Gardner Minshew is not going to be Josh Allen, but it shows that you can distribute the football around, and it makes it harder for defenses to key in on one player. So now you're distributing the football. It's hard to key in on one guy, and you can get multiple people involved. So 3-4 players can have 4 or 5 catches in a game over 60 yards, and that's how you move forward with it on the passing game.
Yeah, and they need, and they're in trouble too, Mo. The injury list is long. If you look at the injury list from yesterday from practice, there's a lot of guys out. Max Crosby's still out. You got a lot of players that are dinged up, even Zamir White. I know some of you might think that's a good thing because if he doesn't play, but nonetheless, they have a long injury list going into just week 5. So it's going to be tough. And I'll say this too, that look, you're going into week 5 now. If we don't see, I believe, if we don't see marked improvement, if we don't see things get better, and it's sort of like what we've seen the first 4 weeks, it's going to be tough for this team, and this distraction doesn't help. All right, we're going to take our last break here on Silver and Black today. We come back, we're going to get to a couple calls because we had so much to get through. But don't worry, if you called in or if you want to hear the calls and you're listening to us on the radio in Las Vegas, then just go to the podcast feed, because we will get all the calls in on the overtime segment, which is our segment 4. Over on the podcast feed. You can get the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Again, Scott and Mo with you on Silver and Black today. Video always brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Don't go anywhere.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right, we're back, Silver and Black today, and we're going to get to some phone calls here. We'll probably get a couple in before we got to bug out for the radio audience, and then we'll have all the calls in our overtime segment, which you can get on our podcast feed, wherever you get your audios, where you can find us. We are an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also, our video feed, you can go watch us on YouTube or wherever you watch videos, brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. And we appreciate the reviews and the comments and everything like that. So we're going to get right to the calls, Mo, because we're trying to get a few in here before we got to check off the radio. Here is our good friend John in New Jersey.
Hey, Scott and Mo. John from Jersey calling in again. First of all, just shout out to you guys. Best Raiders podcast out there. Never miss an episode. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I just had to give a quick call in to react to this whole Davante Adams, saga. I think as a fan, we've all been kind of aware that Davante may not be with the team through the end of the season. Just looking realistically at the state of this team and the assets that he could potentially bring in as a trade target, we've been talking about this since I think last year. So it's not exactly a surprise to get to this point and see that he may be an asset that they look to move. What is a surprise is the way that it seems to have come to a head. And frankly, it's changed my opinion of Antonio Pierce pretty significantly in the span of about a week. This is a guy who isn't an X's and O's kind of coach. He's not some offensive guru who comes in like some of the other coaches. Instead, he was supposed to be a leadership first kind of guy. And in the span of about 12 days, maybe less, we see him go from, calling guys out for making business decisions after a game. And you see a lot of former players and folks in the media talking about how that's not exactly how they would have handled it. And they didn't know if it was appropriate for him to handle it that way. And now you're talking about liking social media posts about your star player who may or may not stay with the team. I just don't know how you get here. As one of 32 people privileged enough in the entire world to be a head coach in the NFL, you're going to jeopardize a relationship with one of your players because you're liking posts on Instagram. I don't know, guys. Talk me off the ledge here. I'm not saying that I am all out on Antonio Pierce at this point, but my image of him as this leader kind of above the fray has really changed. Maybe I missed something and this is all par for the course with him, but it's not what I was expecting coming into the season. Win or lose, moving forward, I'm disappointed that this is already where we are and that it's just yet another embarrassing thing that I have to explain to people out here about, being a Raiders fan. But anyway, love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure you guys have already talked about it a lot at this point, but wanted to call in and give mine. So keep doing what you're doing. John from Jersey out. Peace.
Man, I'll tell you what, again, I say this all the time. Our listeners, viewers, when they call in, I am just so impressed not just because I agree with it, by the way. Sometimes people say it and I disagree with it, but just how he laid it out, because I could have written that for him. That's because that's exactly how I feel. I'm not going to add anything to it. Mo, any comments on what John in Jersey had to say?
I'm not going to mess up what he said because he kind of put what we said eloquently.
Yes.
and laid it out that you just can't have that as a head coach of a football team. And I use the word juvenile.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how Nick said it on the show. First things first, it's kind of like you going through a breakup with someone and you go on social media to express your displeasure with certain things. So you be sarcastic and like certain things on their social media page. You should, as a head coach of a football team, you should be above that. No matter what you feel or how you feel about Antonio Pierce or how you got the job or you can't have it as a head coach, as a leader. That's not what a leader does.
Yeah. Agreed,
go
100%.
on social media and express things that you should be expressing behind the scenes to personally to a player.
Not as a grown man in a position of authority like that, but very few people get there. So, all right, John in Jersey, thanks again. All right, now we're going out to Justin in Pennsylvania. So we're keeping it on the Eastern Seaboard.
Hey guys, it's Justin from Pennsylvania. Wow, some breaking news. Adams probably getting traded. And here we are. This is what most of Raider Nation wanted. They screamed for AP. Adams wanted AP. Crosby wanted AP. AP was probably fourth on my list of coaching candidates, and that's because there isn't a fifth. This is just another mistake in a long runs of mistakes as a Raider fan. Yes, we're only going into week 4, but we are, as Raider fans, far from seeing a Super Bowl or even being contenders, in my opinion. And to get up and be excited over wins against like Cleveland or having the Raiders choke a 10-point lead with 6 minutes to go. Just wanted to see your guys' thoughts on what do we even do from here? Star player wanting to be traded. Emotional, frustrating meetings a month into the season. I thought this was supposed to be different. It looks no better than Josh McDaniels, and I hate to say that. As a Raider fan, I want AP to succeed because he is the coach but this is a mess. Let me know what you guys think. Love the show. Thanks for everything.
Wow. Justin in Pennsylvania. I mean, again, I don't have anything to add there. I think he nailed it, Mo, pretty much.
He also nailed it like John from Jersey. It's
Yeah.
a mess right now, and the only way you can fix it is to win football games. This is why I'm so interested to see how this team is going to respond or rebound from this.
Yes.
You just had a win against Cleveland where you got by the skin of your teeth. Now you have these Davante Adams trade rumors. You have Antonio Pierce liking things on Instagram. I wonder how the players view that, by the way. And now you got to go out into a rivalry game, division rival game against the Denver Broncos, who, by the way, they're surging with 2 road wins back to back. I want to see how this team responds to that. Now, if they come out flat again, we're headed toward disaster.
I would agree with that. All right. That's only 2 calls we got in. Those were 2 amazing calls, by the way. For our radio audience, we got to check out now because we're up against time. So we certainly appreciate you guys being with us on the radio in Las Vegas. But we're going to get to the rest of the calls. We got a bunch more calls, and you'll hear that in our overtime segment. You just got to go to our podcast feed and subscribe to Silver and Black Today there, or you can listen to it on the Odyssey app. Wherever you get your audio, you can find it. So we'll do that, and we'll check out, and we'll see. We'll talk to you next week and see if the Raiders were able to put it together and get over this distraction. Mo, my friend, I will talk to you in just a minute for the phone calls, but also we'll talk to you here next week.
Take care, Scott. Take care, Raider Nation.
All right. For our executive producer in Las Vegas, Mark Bonilla, and for our producer at Odyssey, Mr. Mike Rabier, this is Scott Branson along with Mo Moten. This has been Silver and Black Today. Don't forget, you can hear the rest of the show, the rest of the calls on our overtime segment over on the podcast feed. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. All right, welcome back. Silver and Black Today, the overtime segment for this Thursday edition. We're going to get to the rest of your calls. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. We certainly appreciate you being with us. Of course, the Davante Adams situation is what we've been talking about. By the way, if you're watching us on video, the chat is always awesome. So thank you for being there and being part of that. The video, by the way, brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Make sure you check out BetUS, where, as you heard earlier in the show, you can get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000 using the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150 from BetUS. That's only from Mo and I. Mo's got to spend all that money. He's putting all that 50% in, by the way. Right, Mo? Is that what you're doing?
Of course.
All right, so go do that. BetUS, that's where Mo and I bet football. We didn't have time to even get to our bets this week with this, but that's okay. We'll breaking news kind of takes priority, but we'll get to it again next week. But do us a favor and visit our friends at BetUS. Okay, Mo, let's dive right back into these calls. We were 2 calls on the Eastern Seaboard in the last segment. Now we're going all the way across the world to Hawaii and our good friend MDM.
Aloha. What's up, Scott and Mo? Just real quick commentary on the Davante situation. You guys did a good show on it today. But this was my issue all along. I have the receipts. I've been consistent with what I've emailed you guys or commented with you guys. And it's like, why would you bring in Davante Adams as if he was the cherry on top of a team that you thought was going to make a deep playoff run? Otherwise, you don't trade for a wide receiver like that when you're trying to build a team up. And you bring him in, and then within a year, you get rid of his buddy, which is the reason he came over. And then you fail to trade up in the draft to secure a good quarterback. Hello, what was I saying? Stroud. And then one of the other Raider fans were saying Jaden Daniels. And I know we think he didn't have a chance. We didn't have a chance to trade up. Again, my intel tells me that we had a chance early in the offseason to trade up with the Bears and get Daniels. So, I mean, we got Adams, then we trade away his buddy, and we failed to get a good quarterback. What do we think is going to happen? And then in typical Raider fashion, as Mo stated with Carr, we didn't get any compensation for him. And if we're just going to go like this, why didn't we just trade Davante, say, in this last offseason? Now we're waiting. People know that he's not happy, and we're going to trade him. And his contract is ridiculous next year. I know it's not guaranteed. It's going to have to be restructured, obviously, as part of any trade. But, that's why as a fan, I don't mean to sound negative because, love Raiders pretty much my whole life. My earliest memory was the Raiders playing the Redskins in the Super Bowl when I was growing up in L.A. and going to games in the Coliseum and watching Bo Jackson run 90-something yards down the sidelines against the Bengals on the pitch. But, I mean, come on. I could have run this team, guaranteed we'd have way more wins if I was the GM. And I think there's other fans like myself that love this team, that have a little bit of an analytical mind to kind of know what the right thing and what the wrong thing is to do. And we always see them make the wrong move and we just shake our heads. So this is more of the same. Raiders get no grace from me on this one. And thank you for the show, guys. You guys both take care. God bless.
All right, there's MDM in Hawaii, and brought up a couple good things there, Mo, that I want to hit on, which is number one, trading going back, sorry, one step, which is, I've mentioned it several times on the show about the old Bill Walsh philosophy. Like, that's the wide receiver is the last thing you get. And MDM kind of referred to that, saying the cherry on top. Like, when you're about to go and you got everything together, go get that piece, that wide receiver, right? And the Raiders were not in that position at all with this. If they thought Derek Carr was that guy under John Gruden, then maybe, okay, outside wise. Now, they had other issues back then as well. But so I agree with him there. The second point is the contract. So I think no matter what happens here with the Raiders trading Davante Adams, they're going to have to eat some of that money.
Absolutely. But I also want to point out, because Davante Adams, by the way, doesn't have any more guaranteed money on the last 2 years of his contract, right? So we talked about that. But I also want to say, I think if you want to place some blame at Tom Telesco, and I say I don't place the lion's share of the blame on Tom Telesco in this situation, the only culpability he has for me is the message that he sent. So if the Raiders went into the season and honestly thought that they can compete with the roster that they have with Gardner Minshew under center, that's a whole different discussion. Tom Telesco probably felt like we can compete. Antonio Pierce probably felt like we can compete with what we have. The Raiders have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Remember, this is a team. Defense was ninth in scoring last year. You still have Davante Adams. You drafted Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers pretty solid. Trey Tucker coming along. Michael Mayer. So you have some depth there. Offensive line was revamped, but now you're starting to see what JPJ is starting to come along a bit. This team, it's fair to say that this team had the wrong message for what they thought it would be. So they thought they could compete. But you have Gardner Minshew is a low-end starter. If you figure Davante Adams might be unhappy. Now, again, Davante Adams said he was all in. So you take his word for it and you say, okay, we can compete. But if you look at it and you say, well, it's Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and a lot of fans will say, if you were honest about the assessment of your football team, you would know that they were mediocre. Now, you and I both agreed, Scott. We said this is an 8-9 football team. Apparently, the Raiders front office and Tom Telesco didn't think that way. And it looks like we were more correct than they were, which I guess is what MDM is saying, that how is it that we can all look at these things about the roster and say, this is the right move, this is the wrong move, this is where the Raiders are, and the Raiders themselves can't figure that out.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Tom Telesco got hired on January 23rd, right? So it wasn't like he got hired in April. Right. He had time to do the draft, to assess the roster. He brought in a lot of his own people from where he was with the Chargers. Champ Kelly was still there, who was with the Raiders. So there was so I agree with you. I think that's a good point. And MDM, a great call. All right. Now we're going out to Raider Love. Here's Raider Love.
What is up, Scott, Mo, and the rest of Raider Nation that's tuning in? This is Raider Love on the 626. Well, the first of the month in October, our birthday month, the start of spooky season. And never shocks me to see that the Raiders have always had drama year in and year out. And, just 1 month in, 4 weeks into the season, and already Davante Adams has preferred to be traded and has not requested a trade away from the Raiders. And let's just say I'm not shocked by this, because we did see a lot of the rumors in the offseason. And, putting 2 and 2 together, he came to try to win a Super Bowl, with Derek Carr. And, I hate to bring him oldish, like Smokey from Friday says from that movie, but I mean, if we're being honest, Josh McDaniels came in with Derek Carr, and Davante coming to the Raiders under Derek Carr. That was one of the reasons I came. I know there was family on the West Coast and stuff like that, but that was one of the main reasons. And we never really got to see the potential that Davante Adams and Derek Carr could produce into the second season under McDaniels. And as we all know, that Derek Carr always triumphs in the second season of the same system. So, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But if we're being honest, I know the Raiders tried to trade up these past 2 drafts to get Steve Stroud and Jaden Daniels, but you know, the Raiders did fail Davante Adams and not getting the quarterback and not trying to be a Super Bowl contender. And let's just call it what it is. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I get it. You know, I'm disappointed in Davante Adams back to telling on his comments and that he doesn't want to get traded, so on and so forth. But I understand his frustration. At the end of the day, he deserves to be on a contender and in hopes of a Super Bowl triumph and put that on his resume. So at the end of the day, I get it, but just disappointed. And nowadays, I become numb to this kind of news as a Raider fan. I mean, it is what it is. The Raiders could never have nice things, and this is one of them. So 2 years in the making. I remember when Davante Adams got traded to the Raiders. Back when I got home from work, the wife had shots ready to take. I was super excited to see Derek Carr Davante Adams, but it is what it is. Just another chapter in being a sad Raider fan, and this new century. So that's my thoughts on that, on the trade speculation. But who knows? Maybe Davante Adams never gets traded, you know, and it all goes out the window. But at the end of the day, I think these are being released just because of AP's immature decisions as a head coach, with as far as, you know, making his decisions at the podium and liking an Instagram post. So it is what it is at the end of the day. Just another Raider story to add to the book. So this is Raider Loke, and I'm out.
All right. Oh, it's Raider Loke. I said Raider Love. See? It's our good buddy Raider Loke down in LA.
How did you mess up Raider Loke?
I don't know, because there's so many calls.
He's a VIP caller, Scott.
He is a VIP caller. And again, nailed it. I mean, he always has good calls, but he laid it all out there. And I think you're right. This is where I say there's a lot of failure to go around here.
And I think the gist of his call is, at this point, does anything surprise you now? If they told you right now, and Antonio Pierce is on Instagram right now, scrolling through whatever and liking posts, anti-Davante Adams posts, would you be surprised? No. If they told you, hey, another player has requested a trade, would you be really surprised? A key player, would you be surprised? If you just go really quick, just go down a list of things that have happened in the last, 6 years. You got Khalil Mack trade. I mean, we got the John Gruden emails. We got the tragic situation with Henry Ruggs, of course. We got Lynn Bowden Jr. getting moved. I know he was a 3rd-round pick, but he gets moved before he even plays a football game with the Raiders. We got the Chandler Jones issue, him going AWOL. Hope he's getting help and getting better. But it just seems like year after year after year after year, it's always something. And it's something other than what's going on the football field, Scott.
Right. And remember coming into this season, we had a lot of callers and folks that reached out to us online to say, well, you know, we got better. Why is the media just saying we're going to be worse than the Broncos? This is why, because it's not just about the football stuff. This is unfortunately what, and I know it hurts to say this for you fans out there. This is what the brand has become. Like, you guys love it for the brand that was and is in certain ways. But in other ways, this is how people look at the Raiders as a soap opera, right? These are the days of our lives, right? The old soap opera on midday. So until they fix it, it's going to be that way. But you can only do that resume on the grass, right? That's what you got to do. All right, we're going to move on to Raider Rube. Here's Raider Rube.
Hey, Scott and Mo. Raider Rube out of North Dakota.
Dakota.
All right, I'll get to the Davante thing in just a minute. But my thing this season was all about the roster. I didn't care if we won 5 games or 10 games. The roster needed to be better. So we got our quarterback of the future, a good team to work with. Looking at the question marks, hoping they become exclamation points in the positive. Ja'Cory Bennett, great. Tyree Wilson showing signs. JPJ showing signs. DJ Glaze a surprise. Zamir White's still a question mark, and so on. I was hoping that with Davante Adams, we would just trade him in the middle of the night. And, you know, I wake up one morning and, hey, okay, we traded. We got some decent compensation. Didn't make any sense for the plans we had, because even with a rookie quarterback, we were going to have a struggling offense next year anyway. But now with all this IG drama, and I know it's probably just the straw that broke the camel's back at worst, at least it's, a bad look. It makes me question Antonio Pierce. I was always skeptical about him in the first place. I thought that Pierce, his big thing is leadership. The players advocated for him. Davante was his biggest cheerleader, and now 4 games in, maybe 3 games in, they can't stand each other. And now it hurts the trade value, and we get all this drama, and it makes the Raiders look bad. It makes Antonio look bad. So I think Mark Davis doesn't fire him now. I don't think they should necessarily fire him at the end of the season, let the season play out. But I think Mark Davis has to take a big, deep look and say, this is a big red flag.
I'm going to draft my future quarterback, and I have to have him work with Antonio Pierce. And if I don't want the Antonio Pierce and future quarterback relationship to look like the Brian Flores-Tua situation, I have to take a deep look at, is this the guy I want to build my team around with? So I'm really concerned about where that's going. So I'm hoping they'll figure that out. But that's where I'm at. I'm looking at this roster, hope we get good trade compensation. And again, if we win 5 games, great, easier to get a quarterback. If we win 10 games, we'll be bounced out of the playoffs, and it'll be harder for us to get that quarterback. We'll have to see what happens. Thanks, guys.
Damn, Mo, the listeners are bringing it, man. Like, I can't even add.
They're doing better than we are. They're laying it out. They got the timeline down, forward-looking analysis on this one. I don't have much to add there other than I just want to reiterate we're not calling for Antonio Pierce to be fired today.
Nope.
And I think the caller Raider Rube had it well put that at the end of the season, I think the Raiders should just do a whole look at, okay, how did this operation run under Antonio Pierce in his first full season as a head coach? You know me, I like stability and consistency. But if you have too many of these red flags within one season, as Raider Rube said, do you want to bring a quarterback into that environment where it could be toxic? There could be disarray and discord. You don't want that. So Antonio Pierce, while he's still on the job now, he has to clean a lot of this up right now.
Yeah, and I said it all along. I was fine with them hiring Antonio Pierce. I just said that he's got a much higher hill to climb than some of the other names that were put out there who had coordinator positions or head coaching positions in the past. That didn't mean he couldn't do it. It just means it's harder. Now I think he's slipped back down that hill and he's got to climb it again, the early part of that hill. And to me, I would hope and I would expect that Tom Telesco and leadership at the Raiders is maybe going to have an intervention or has had an intervention to say, look, you're the head coach now. You got to watch what you say. You got to play these things differently, and this is how you do it. He's got Marvin Lewis there, was a head coach of the NFL forever and a coordinator too. Why he's not been able to either glean from them that experience, or if they're not giving it, I don't know what I don't know what it is, but it's got to change really fast because to his point, to Raider Rube's point, red flags. And if you keep adding red flag on top of red flag, you're just going to make the journey harder and your chances of success are going to get less and less as time moves on. So, all right, Raider Rube, we appreciate it. Now we're going behind bars with our good friend, Reverend Mike. Here he is.
Scott, Bo, Pastor Mike behind bars.
Pastor Mike, not Reverend.
Thought I'd wait a couple of days to my reaction to the game. Yeah, we beat the Browns. Yay. Good, I guess. Not a really great team, but a win is a win. And as Al always says, just win, baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I noticed, though, is, the run game seemed to get going. I felt Getsy was a little bit more creative, maybe not consistently. There's a C word, right? But the one thing that I noticed the most is JPJ and his play. That boy was just mauling people, and I love to see it. I mean, so much so I heard that the refs had to tell AP, hey, he needs to tone down his aggression a little. It's like, forget that. You want to tone down the guy's aggression?
Nope. Let's
keep going, man. So I'm excited about that. I feel like, hey, maybe the reason that AP says, they're the best chance to win in these first few games is with Gardner Minshew is because of that offensive line. It's not quite gelled yet. I haven't got the, JPJ going or whoever, but, see DJ Glaze and himself, do really well. It was great to see. And so who knows, maybe after that offensive line gets a little bit more solidified, we'll see AP or AOC. I'm sorry. Now I want to talk about Tay really quick and, okay, they're going to trade Tay. I didn't really like the idea, or it looks like he's going to get traded. But let me tell you something, man. It was just kind of like Randy Moss all over again, right? I mean, he goes on Kay Adams. He says, I haven't really talked to AP. But unbeknownst to us, that the same day, he asked for a trade. Now, I don't know if he asked for the trade before he went on Kay Adams or after he went on Kay Adams. But to me, it just, a little disingenuous. The guy didn't play during the preseason. and so it's almost like he's a little bit of a diva. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you guys know that, and hope you have a great day. Bye.
All right, there's Pastor Mike behind bars. I called you Reverend. You may be a Reverend, by the way. See, what happened? I was listening to Run DMC earlier. I had Rev Run on my head, and so when I labeled it, that's what happened. But Pastor Mike, he's good. He's right on that. The last point. Listen, first of all, Mo, tell me if I'm wrong on this. Wide receivers like Davante Adams or Tyreek Hill, they are divas. That's how they are, and they're not happy unless they get the ball. Okay, and that they're the center of things. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's just how it is. So the fact that he wasn't getting the ball, his point about the Kay Adams show, the timing and all that stuff, it's a fair point. I do think that when you look at the situation, though, it had already deteriorated, obviously, their communications, because we now hear that there was problems in training camp. So this goes way back. And not only that, but it points to an issue with communications throughout the organization, or at least on the team, because we had him earlier just a few weeks ago.
Right. So when Vic Tafur outlined where this all stemmed from, he talked about Adams. He was away from the team because of the birth of his first son. And I believe the way Vic Tafur wrote it was he took more time than they thought he would take. He was gone for an extended period, but that didn't get out of Raider headquarters, which is a good thing, by the way. But going back to Pastor Mike's call, I want to just positivity first, right? So Tom Telesco, as a GM drafting, I would say thumbs up. If you look at, and I said this last week or on the last show, if you look at Brock Bowers, if you look at Jackson Powers Johnson, if you look at DJ Glaze, they all look like long-term starters. So that's a positive for Tom Telesco. I also want to just shout out our callers, because there have been a lot of people. MDM is one of them. A lot of our callers have said, just trade Davante Adams. A lot of our callers had the foresight to say, trade him now before this thing takes a left turn. And sure enough, this thing took a left turn. And as a couple of our callers have already pointed out, now he's dealing with a hamstring injury, and everyone knows that he's not happy there. So his trade value has dropped. It reminds me so much of when we talked about Darren Waller, when we said, don't pay Darren Waller. Right. And the Raiders had some offers for him, and they had to settle for a 3rd round pick when they could have probably got a 2nd round pick the year before. For me, it looks like the Raiders are always a year behind, or always behind when it comes to trading a player at peak value.
Yeah. And it might have been in this case, and I'm not making excuses for Tom Telesco, but coming in new, you're not there. If he was there last year and he knew Tay Adams better, maybe he would have done that. Maybe he would have said to him, hey, listen, we're going this direction. I don't think it's right for you. I want to give you the opportunity to go somewhere else where you can maybe compete to win faster than you're going to be able to do it here.
Really quick, Scott, what's wild to think about? We always criticize John Gruden for his roster management. The John Gruden, Reggie McKenzie tenure, which is short, by the way, was better at trading players than the previous couple of regimes. So remember, they traded Khalil Mack. At least they got a treasure chest. They got some good picks for Khalil Mack.
Yes.
They got a 1st rounder for Amari Cooper. Right? Those trades happened. People didn't like them.
They wasted them, but yes.
But at least they got those 1st round picks.
Yes.
You're looking at the previous 2 regimes, and you look at, I just talked about Darren Waller, right? They paid Hunter Renfrow. He didn't even have value by the time he wasn't of use to the Raiders. They cut Derek Carr without getting anything for him. Now you have this Davante Adams situation where you probably have to settle for less than you would have if none of this gets out to the public. How is it that John Gruden and Reggie McKenzie were better at trading players, star players, than the previous 2 regimes? It doesn't make any sense.
And that's why I focused on the liking of this stupid Instagram post and how that created where we're at. Because had this all stayed behind closed doors, and Davante Adams just went in and asked for a trade. Now, maybe somebody would have leaked it out to a source like the agent or somebody, who knows, but it wouldn't have been like this. It would have been very quiet. Yeah, he's got a little hamstring thing, but he's fine. You could have played it well where the value and your position didn't look so dire. Right now it looks dire. It's like sitting next to somebody and playing poker, and they know you have a pair of 5s. Okay. And that's all you got. That's all you got. Like, they know what your hand is. Okay. So I agree with you 100%. Good point. All right. Great call as always, Pastor Mike. Now we're going to Florida. We're zip. We're going all over the country. I love it. Here is South Florida Raider.
Hey, this is South Florida Raider. I'm glad to see the Raiders get a victory this past Sunday. They made some adjustments that helped the running game come alive a bit. They implemented some pro formation, hence the word pro, which is important in the running game. However, the offense still looks erratic with no identity. On another topic, I'm glad to see Adams go. I think he's a diva. I don't think that diva personality fits in the locker room with so many young players. He's also dropped a bunch of balls in the last few years. He thinks he's better than what he really is. I'm happy to get a second rounder for him. Shout out to Murph, but he was a bit harsh on Derek. The interception Derek threw was on a tip ball that got ran back. He also led a game-winning drive that his defense gave up on a penalty at the end of the game on a pass interference. And yes, I'm a Derek fan. Derek should still be here. It starts at the top of the organization, and too many bad decisions have been made by the Raiders, aka Josh McDoubles. Anyhow, this is South Florida Raider out.
Josh McDoubles. That's a great one, South Florida Raider. Great call. And all good points. The point about the offense and the pro sets we saw, obviously, against the Browns, and hopefully we'll see more of it too against the Broncos, which was that pro set and seeing Gardner Minshew under center on those running plays.
So two quick things, Scott. I was on with my guys, Pharaoh and the Severe Raider on Tuesday. And they asked a pretty good question about, do I think that a play caller can improve over time, or does that play caller, do you know when a play caller just has it, like a Kyle Shanahan or a Sean McVay? I told them that I kind of view it how I view players coming to the league. Some guys, right away they're going to be a star. Malik Neighbors with the Giants, you could see it right away. But some guys, it may take 2 or 3 years. That's just everyone develops differently. So the premise of the question was, do I think Luke Getsy can improve over time? And I think one of the important things that South Florida Raider pointed out, the pro form, getting the run game going, getting some speed on the ground. You can get better as a play caller. I don't think Luke Getsy will ever be a Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, Minnesota type of play caller, but can he make some improvements? We saw some of that last week. We just hope that it continues. What I will say, too, about the Derek Carr situation, I think the Raiders had the right idea when they had Derek Carr there and they brought in Davante Adams, but they had the wrong coach, right? So they had Josh McDaniels there. And he completely fumbled, and Dave Ziegler completely fumbled that situation. If you had a more experienced and a better head coach, a more experienced GM and a better head coach, I think the Raiders would have handled that a lot better. And even if they were to move on from Derek Carr, they would at least got something for him.
Absolutely. Yep. It's all about timing and planning. And like you said, it always seems like they're a year behind. But we'll see how it all goes. All right. South Florida Raider, appreciate it. We're going to close out this overtime segment and the calls today on the Raider Nation mailbag with our good friend Tarek. Here's Tarek in Boston.
Good evening, Scott and Mo. This is Tarek calling you guys from Beantown. Just want to talk a little Davante Adams. Obviously, breaking news today. Davante requesting a trade. I did not realize that there was some contention between him and AP. Certainly sounds like it. But again, Davante Adams, the writing was kind of on the wall with this. It really doesn't come as a surprise. He will be 32 in December. I mean, he's an all-world wide receiver. He is a classy dude. He is chasing a ring, and everybody knows that he's not going to get a ring in Vegas. We don't have a franchise quarterback. We probably won't even have a winning record this year. And honestly, since he's been here, after Derek Carr, we've gone through just a string of loser quarterbacks, which include Garoppolo, Hoyer, AOC, and Minshew. I mean, that definitely doesn't meet the standards of Davante Adams the type of wide receiver he is. And, you just see the pattern here over the years. I mean, Randy Moss wanted the heck out of Oakland. Amari Cooper wanted out. And now Davante Adams. I mean, it's unfortunate that some of the quality players that we bring in don't end up staying and go on to greener pastures. I think at this point, moving forward, I think, it looks like the Raiders are going to try to get at least a second-round pick with some additional type of compensation. If we can snag if another team out there is foolish enough to give us a first-round pick, I don't care who it is. If he goes to Kansas City, so be it. If he goes to the Jets, so be it. Get that first-round pick if you can, even though that doesn't appear to be in the cards. But again, breaking news, we fortunately do have some other weapons, and we look decent without Davante in the lineup. So it looks like everybody's going to be mutually moving forward. Can't wait to hear what you guys think about this, what your thoughts are on it. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Go Raiders. Bye-bye.
All right. There's Tarek as the anchor here on the overtime segment of the Raider Nation mailbag. Good point, Mo. This brought what he was talking about. Look, without the offense, without Davante Adams, you said on the last show, and I agreed with you 100%, which was, how the hell did Brock Bowers only get 3 targets? Now, is this not like, I mean, even more imperative that Brock Bowers get more targets against Denver on Sunday?
If he's not getting the targets, who's getting them? That would be my question.
I think Trey Tucker is going to benefit a little bit, but again, there's a limit there compared to what Brock Bowers is.
So against Denver, Patrick Surtain too is an All-Pro cornerback, and I expect that Jacoby Myers, while I like Jacoby Myers, he's going to have a tough time with Patrick Surtain. So I do expect Trey Tucker to get a lot of looks, but Brock Bowers is now probably your best offensive playmaker overall. No disrespect to Jacoby Myers, who's way more experienced, but we saw what Brock Bowers could do in the first 2 weeks of the season. And I think he's got a bright future. So this is going to be a Brock Bowers centric passing game with the other parts. Like I said, the Raiders still have some depth among their pass catchers. You can still spread the football to Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers and Michael Mayer, assuming he comes back. DJ Turner can get involved. Tyreek McKinnon can also get involved. But now you could spread the football. But Brock Bowers has to see at least 7-8 targets a game.
Easy. Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100% against that defense, especially. So good. All right. Well, guys, just blown away by the calls tonight. So thank you so much for that. And we appreciate it. If you want to be part of the show next time, 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869. If you're watching us on video, you can see the number there down below. Write it down and call in for next week. I say wait till the game's over on Sunday so that you can give us your reaction to that. But if you got something else to say, you can call before that. Not a problem. Mo, this is Thursday. Let everybody else know what you got coming up the rest of this week, and give everybody where they can catch you or read you or whatever it may be.
There's an article up on Sportsnet where I take a look at realistic trade packages for Davante Adams. I know a lot of people want the moon and the sun for him, but in reality, as I said, with the hamstring injury and teams knowing that he wants out, the compensation isn't going to be what a lot of people think it will be. So I went over it over on Sportsnet. Later on today, I will be on with Coy Wire discussing the biggest topics going around the NFL. So, of course, we're going to talk about Davante Adams, right? And then on Sunday, I'll be on after the Raiders-Denver Broncos for the post-game reaction show, win, lose, or tie.
That's right. All right. Make sure you catch Mo and all those places, and make sure you push the love through the screen, through the speaker, whatever it may be. So do that. But we will be back with you, myself, with Murph and the voice of the fan after the game as well when they play the Broncos. So join us live for that one. And then, of course, we'll be back here next week. All right. For Mo Moten, I'm Scott Branson, and for our producer, Mike Robier, and for Mark Bonney in Las Vegas, we appreciate you guys being with us. And don't forget, subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. And don't forget the video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. We will talk to you guys next week. Take care.